Ready to escape into a world of enchanting pixels? What is up, my peeps? And today we're going to be reading Time's Super Mario, the all-star video game changer. So let's get into it. There's the table of contents right there. Alright, here we go. Still super, after all these years. What began as an 8-bit platformer game has spawned a global multimedia franchise. The closing ceremony of the Rio de Janeiro 2016 Summer Olympics bade farewell with samba music, vibrant colors and dancers posing as iconic monuments and landmarks, all befitting the carnival traditions of the host city. Beyond bringing the games to an end, an Olympics closing has one other agenda item: to introduce the nation hosting the following Summer Olympics of August 2016, shortly after a choir of Rio children sang the Olympic anthem. A film titled Warming Up, Tokyo 2020 was broadcast to the audience. The glossy promotional video showcased various sporting icons and throughout the next host city, along with well-known Japanese pop culture mainstays, such as Hello Kitty and Doraemon. But in a surprise cut, a video showed late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in a Toyota Century, worried that he wouldn't be able to make it to Rio on time. Fret not, Abe morphed into an animated Mario, dove into a green pipe in Tokyo, and emerged as a human figure from a green pipe on the field in Rio de Janeiro, holding a red ball and waving a red Mario-style cap. To be honest, when Tokyo Olympic Game Organizing Committee head Yoshiro Mori first came to me with the idea of appearing at the ceremony dressed as Mario, I didn't like it. Abe explained to Nikan Sports in a 2020 interview, laughing, "Is it really okay for a prime minister to dress up like Mario?" I asked as much as possible. I wanted to avoid any politicizing of the Olympics. And it's a 20-hour flight to Rio. But during Mori's team as Prime Minister, I was his Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary, so he was something of a mentor to me. You're the only one who can do this since you've been serving as Prime Minister so long and are recognized internationally, he said. So I ended up doing it. The promotional escapade inspired immense enthusiasm online, with Abe Mario the top trending topic on Twitter. Mario is a mustachioed Italian-American plumber and the mainstay of Nintendo's fortunes. Considering game sales alone, the Mario video game franchise has sold more than 900 million units worldwide across more than 200 games, making it the best-selling video game franchise of all time. The primary Super Mario series has sold more than 495 million copies worldwide. In terms of gross revenue, including merchandise, events, and film, Mario is a financial juggernaut. The Mario franchise has earned more than 55 billion worldwide and is the second highest grossing video game franchise after Pokemon. One second. There we go. Which has grossed more than 90 billion. Scores of video games have taken inspiration from the original Super Mario Bros. Video game of 1985, which first appeared 40 years ago on Nintendo's earliest home console, the 8-bit NES. Mario has lent his likeness to toys, mugs, beauty products, and a highly successful feature film, and one not-so-successful flick. As Prime Minister Abe's Warp in 2016 shows, Super Mario is also a tool of geopolitical influence, with Mario as a global ambassador. A childhood mainstay, Mario's first visit to the Olympics was not his 2016 appearance. Almost a decade before, the iconic Italian plumber faced off against a blue-haired hedgehog named Sonic in a series of video games tied to Olympic events. The Mario and Sonic at the Olympics series kicked off in 2007 for the Wii with the Beijing 2008 edition called Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Games tied to the 2012 London, 2016 Rio, and 2020 Tokyo Olympics followed, as did several ties as did several entries tied to Winter Olympics. When Mario and Sonic failed to pay a visit to the Paris Olympics in 2024, the world noticed. And Lee Cocker, executive producer on the series for 17 years who worked on every game, had to issue a statement confirming that the series was over. My Twitter blew up. My Twitter, social media, and emails blew up, Lee told the BBC. Loads of people messaging me saying, "We love that game. We grew up on that game." Connecting with children is part of Super Mario's ethos. Ingrained since the franchise's earliest iterations, Super Mario's primary creator, designer Shigeru Miyamoto, has said that the content of his games is based substantially on the experiences of his own childhood. I can still recall that kind of sensation I had when I was in a small river and I was searching with my hands beneath a rock, and something hit my finger. I noticed it was a fish, Miyamoto told The New Yorker. That's something I can't express in words. It's such an unusual situation. I wish that children nowadays could have similar experiences, but it's not very easy. The player in a Super Mario game behaves similarly to a young Miyamoto. The players roll down hills, jump around, encounter fish in rivers, and explore caves, woods, and old ruins. While the basic level architecture of Mario games feature clouds, hills, flowers, and aesthetics familiar to small children, across the world, also here's the picture right there, some key elements are firmly rooted in experiences sourced from a Japanese childhood. Those clouds and flowers are often adorned with eyes, a reflection of the native Shinto tradition of animalism, in which elements of the natural world includes nature spirits named kami. Many enemies throughout the games are based on yokai, monsters and ghosts of native Japanese folklore. Games with moderate difficulty levels tend to be the most enjoyable for players. When a game is too easy, players quickly lose interest, as there's no significant challenge to overcome. If a game is too difficult or too hard, players, especially children, may become frustrated and give up, leading to decreased engagement. Mario games strike a balance between repeated successes and the thrill of new challenges. A lot of the so-called action games are not made that way, Miyamoto said. All of the time, players are forced to do their utmost if they are challenged to the limit. Is it really fun for them? But when it comes to Mario games, as well as others he's created, like the Legend of Zelda series, Miyamoto said, you are constantly providing the players with a new challenge, but at the same time providing them with some stage or occasions where they can simply, repeatedly do something again and again, and that itself can be a joy. Musical legacy. Oh, here we go. Mario's main musical theme, the ground theme as it's officially known, is one of the most recognizable video game themes of all time. The jaunty rhythm and snappy melody occurs in 1985's Super Mario Bros. David Gibson is the digital project coordinator for the recorded sound section at the Library of Congress National Audiovisual Conservation Center. That's a mouthful to say. For nearly 2 decades, he has worked to oversee collection and preservation activities for video games at the Library of Congress. In 2023, he penned a tribute essay to the ground theme, and its composer, Koji Konko. I hope I'm saying that right. Koji Konko and Koji Kondo. I hope I'm really saying that right. Anyway, from their initial reception, video games incorporated sound effects and music to enhance the gameplay experience. From the audible blips when a player makes contact with the ball in ping pong to Pac-Man's famous Waka Waka sound. Early game developers recognized that sound was an integral component of engaging the player by creating a multi-sensory experience, explained Gibson. As sound chips for arcade and home consoles became more sophisticated, game developers continued to broaden the sonic palette, very funny there, for games released throughout the early 1980s, inspired by these developments. I'm just going to call him KK. Yeah, I'm just going to call him KK. KK built upon the existing framework of video game sound design in an effort to create something altogether more musical. Upon seeing the overworld levels in an early version of Super Mario Bros., now known today as Mario 1, Kay initially wrote a laid-back, relaxing piece that would evoke the feeling of a carefree walk, he explained to Nintendo Minute in 2014, but he thought that tone did not fit the game. Kay decided instead to create a new piece with a tempo that would match the game's speed and the rhythm of Mario's movements. Perhaps the most impressive fact to consider when evaluating the ground theme from a musical standpoint is its relative complexity, particularly given the limited palette of sounds available via the early sound chip that shipped with Nintendo's Famicom and NES platforms. Explained Gibson. Kay was essentially working with only 4 channels to create this work: 2 pulse wave channels, a triangle wave channel, and a noise channel. Kay worked out the melody in advance and then programmed the notes for each channel into the computer by combining his musical theory background with the technical skills that he quickly acquired as a Nintendo employee. Kay was able to communicate his musical ideas in captivating ways, alternating melodies between the 3 melodic channels and employing the noise channel to create driving and rhythmic variation. In 2023, the ground theme, just referred to as the Super Mario Bros. Theme, or again, the Mario 1 theme, was recognized as a key contribution to U.S. history. It was one of the 25 songs added to the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry that year, along with Mariah Carey's Christmas classic, All I Want for Christmas Is You, Daddy Yankee's Gasolina, and Madonna's Like a Virgin. Interesting. That's interesting. Anyway, this was the first time a video game theme was ever added to the registry. I've also heard rumors of It's a Small World from Disney also being added to that registry too, I think, though I could be wrong on that. Anyway, this was the first time a video game theme was ever added to the registry. For many children of the 1980s, the opening notes of the Mario 1 ground theme served as an introduction to the musical world of Nintendo. Given that the game was included with a purchase of the NES by 1988, wrote Gibson, the first 6 notes that greet the player upon starting the game immediately set the mood for this thrilling home gaming experience, as Mario and Luigi's universe had continued to expand. The ground theme stands as an early testament to the power of video game music to inspire, captivate, and excite endlessly for the fans. Perhaps no such indication of Mario's reach is more obvious than the success of the 2023 film, released on April 5th. The Super Mario Bros. Movie, better known as just the Mario movie, was a major box office success. It earned more than $377 million worldwide in its opening weekend, making it the biggest global release ever for an animated film, beating out the previous title holder, Frozen 2. While movies adapted from video games have a history of falling flat, right? A number of factors helped the Mario movie succeed where others have failed. There was an all-star cast, a hefty budget, more than $100 million, and swaths of beloved characters to bring to the big screen. But it was the fans and their memes, illustrations, and hashtags that drew triumphant support. On Twitter and TikTok, hashtags like Super Mario Movie and Super Mario Bros. Have accumulated roughly 4 billion views. The latter was of one of TikTok's highest trending tags due to the release month, according to the data from TikTok's Creative Center. Viewers have also gathered on Reddit, with Mario's subreddit fostering a community of over 13 million, and Nintendo's subreddit logging in at over 2 million. As fans shared comedic fan art and movie spoilers within the threads. While Nintendo may have unintentionally turned fans into marketers, the company was a bit more intentional when they turned players into game developers with 2015's Super Mario Maker. The platformer and game creation system released for the Wii U allowed players to create, play, and share courses online based on the style of previous Super Mario games. Super Mario Maker is a bit of an answered prayer for every kid who grew up with graphing paper and a dream. I have been able to spend a few days and one intense night with the game, Polygon Ben's Kachura exclaimed in 2015 in an article providing the game ahead of its release. I played one level where someone used Bowser's Flying Craft, a fire flower, and a scrolling level to create a bullet hell shoot 'em up. That's just the beginning. The community, which is tiny in these pre-release days, is already coming up with great stuff. When more people are involved, it's gonna get very strange, very quickly. And most of the strange experiments are going to be delightful. 40 years after he entered homes around the world on 8-bit NES, Mario is still a figure that inspires joy, nostalgia, and most of all, an urge to stomp on mushrooms over and over again. With a parent company putting out new and exciting games every year and a reach that extends to global leaders in musical disciplines, Mario is going to stay super for a very long time. And that is also very true, because Nintendo clearly love using the word super in Mario merchandise, as well as in Super Mario Wonder and the previously mentioned Super Mario Maker. Anyways, Mario's evolution. The world's most famous plumber began as the humble Jumpman in a Donkey Kong arcade game. Though the years, he's developed a unique history and lore that comes to life across evolving technologies. It's on like Donkey Kong, the game's origins. Mario began as a side character in an earlier Nintendo game. The company storied history sheds light on his full journey. Nintendo had a problem. 2,000 unsold Radar Scope game cabinets, part of the Japanese company's first foray into U.S. arcades, were collecting dust in Tukwala Wash warehouse. Whatever Nintendo did with these 2,000 cabinets would be the difference between profit and loss. Whoa. And either cement or diminish its place in the American market. First released in 1979, the shoot-'em-up arcade game saw major success in Japan. The next year, eyeing a new market, Nintendo of America's then president, Minoru Akrawa, I think it's how you say that, sent a large shipment of radar scopes. Sent, if I can say that properly, sent a large shipment of radar scopes to the States, but games like Pac-Man and Space Invaders proved to be steep competition, and Radar Scope never took off. The unlikely solution, the story-driven, graphically playful Donkey Kong, stood in contrast to the illustrious shooting games and the dark, dingy arcades that defied the early 1980s. Here was a game that was bright, colorful, even cute, complete with an original soundtrack. It was a breakout success. At just the right time, before the arcade crash of '93, Donkey Kong solidified Nintendo as a contender in the arcade battle, and positioned the company for success in the home market. But perhaps the most significant part of Nintendo's US comeback, the origin of Nintendo's mascot, a mustachioed Italian plumber named Mario, now arguably as recognizable as Mickey Mouse. Kind of ironic they're mentioning Mickey Mouse, given that Time has also done a Disney magazine, but anyways, Mario is a testament to the value of risk-taking and perseverance, lessons that can also be learned in his euphorious games. Oh, I should also mention as well, alongside them mentioning Mickey Mouse in this magazine, they're also mentioning Mickey Mouse given that that Time has also made a Disney magazine. Finally, Sonic is also just as recognizable as both Mickey Mouse and Mario. Let that sink in. Anyway, long before it infiltrated arcades and living rooms, give me 1 second, Nintendo was Nintendo Copy, however you pronounce that, or Nintendo Cards, founded by artist and craftsman Fushio Yakamari. I think I'm saying that right. I'm not very good with Japanese names. Anyway, in 1989, the company created and sold popular illustrated playing cards called Hanafada. The name Nintendo, it said, roughly translates to "leave luck to heaven," a nod to the players who gambled with the cards. Throughout the 20th century, Nintendo stayed in the Yakamachi family. Fushiaro's son-in-law, Sekiro Yamauchi, took over as the second president. Oh, and there's, Donkey Kong. There's a tidbit about Donkey Kong leading the... Is it commanding? No, company. Company from 1929 to 1949. Disgrace struck the family when Sekiro's son-in-law, Shigeru Yamauchi abandoned his family. Shigeru's daughter, Kimi, filed for divorce and moved in with her sister, leaving their young son Hiroshi with his grandparents when Shigeru suffered a stroke in 1949. He asked his grandson Hiroshi to take his place at Nintendo. Hiroshi, who had eliminated all of Nintendo's existing managers, had a different vision for his grandfather's company, experimenting with revenue streams from instant rice to taxis and love hotels that couples could rent by the hour. None of Hiroshi's eccentric venture stuck, so he decided to refocus on Nintendo's original niche, entertainment. A toy called the Ultra Hand, first created by a Nintendo maintenance worker at home on the weekend, steered the company in a new direction. The Nintendo Games Department was established in 1969, overseen by Hiroshi Inmashi. I'm really butchering these Japanese names, aren't I? A Nintendo exclusive, inspired to expand into the toy market. Integral to Nintendo's success in toys and games was the Genpai Yukio, hired by Nintendo in 1965 to maintain the assembly line that produced the company's playing cards. Whoops, there we go. That produced the company's playing cards. I don't know why I unfolded that. There we go. But Yokuri was far more than a maintenance worker. He was an inventor. In 1970, Nintendo released Yokuri's gadget, which went on to sell more than 1 million units. The Ultra Hand was only the start of Nintendo's new market. Yokuri also helped create a pitching machine, a periscope-like device, and even a love tester. A meter that would read the love between two people. Notably, Yokuri's creations generally created new experiences with existing technology, making the products more accessible and affordable. The Nintendo way of adapting technology is not to look for state-of-the-art, but to utilize matured technology that can be mass-produced cheaply, Yokuri once said. According to David Sheff's 1993 book Game Over, How Nintendo Zapped an American Industry, Captured Your Dollars, and Enslaved Your Children? What the heck? Anyway, one of Yokuri's most important creations was the Nintendo Beam Gun, a toy gun that used solar cell technology to hit physical targets yards away. The toy gun, a collaboration with Yokuri's colleagues Masayuki Yumura, had a light sensor on the end. The game included physical targets, such as a plastic beer bottle constructed of pieces with display lights. So if a player aimed a gun at the sensor, the gun would fire, causing the bottle to explode. The gun grew so popular in Japan that Nintendo created clay ranges inside old bowling alleys. This, some critics argue, was Nintendo's first real arcade game, though it used a 16mm film instead of CGI. In late 1970s Japan, popular games like Taito's Space Invaders made video game arcades a distinctive part of Japanese culture. To this day, these game centers are a popular leisure activity in Japan. Recognizing the importance of entering the arcade niche, the company eventually created CGI arcade games throughout 1978 and 79. Nintendo released its own original CGI games, including Computer Ortello, Block Fever, and Space Fever. Nintendo's successful 1980 release, Game & Watch, a video game the size of a calculator with a digital clock in the top corner, a Game Boy prototype inspired by Yokuri's observation of a fellow train commuter fiddling with a calculator. Wow, that's interesting. The progression from cards to toys to games seemed natural, but Nintendo's new niche represented a shift towards serious gameplay. Working in the gambling-type space, Nintendo had understood people crave entertainment and distraction. Says Jennifer D. Winter, Dean at the Illinois Institute of Technology and author of Shigeru Miyamoto's Super Mario Bros., Donkey Kong, The Legend of Zelda. Really? That's the name of the book? Wow. Anyway. Oh, wait, no. Guess that's the name of another book. Anyways, rather than simply indulging players' dopamine systems, the next generation of games would connect with players on a far more meaningful level. Going west. From the mid-20th century on, Nintendo was stable, but its leaders recognized the company wasn't on par with global entertainment leaders like Disney. In the mid-60s, Yashimi got a licensing deal to put Disney characters on the back of trading cards, and that's when he realized Japan was one small market in the global economy, says Jeff Ryan, author of Super Mario: How Nintendo Conquered America. Becoming a big success in Japan wasn't the end-all be-all. It was becoming a world power. The US arcade boom of the late 1970s and early 80s was the perfect opportunity for the Japanese market to enter the American market. For the Japanese company to enter the American market. Hiroshi asked his son-in-law, Minoru Akawa, to take Nintendo to North America. Nintendo of America was born in 1980. Ultimately headquartered in Redmond, Washington, Radarscope would be its first arcade release. When Radarscope, Nintendo's failed arcade game fell through, Yokari started a competition within the company to design a conversion kit for the existing game. A young industrial designer, Shigeru Miyamoto, had joined Nintendo in 1977 as a staff artist, inspired by manga, a Japanese genre of comic books. Miyamoto initially wanted to be a cartoonist. His dad set him up with an interview at Nintendo, and Yashimi was impressed by Miyamoto's designs on children's clothes hangers. In the late 70s, the author of Japanese book Denshi Yugi Taisen TV games asked Miyamoto if he saw himself as an artist or engineer. I like to think I'm somewhere in between the two. What I aspire to be personally is an entertainer with lots of good ideas, Miyamoto replied. Given his earlier career aspirations, it makes sense that Miyamoto's design submission was based on another famous cartoon. Miyamoto wanted Popeye to be the protagonist of his game, but the company couldn't get the rights. Instead, Miyamoto created his own Popeye-themed game, where a good guy would fight a villain to save a girl. Donkey Kong. Donkey for stubborn and Kong for gorilla replaced Bluto, and a princess named Pauline stood in for Olive Oil, I think it's called. Standing in for Popeye, a protagonist named Jumpman, a carpenter with a blue shirt and red hat. Overalls, and a trademarked mustache. Ryan calls Jumpman a digital atom, the first video game character that looked and acted like a real human being. As revolutionary as Jumpman was back then, his design was primitive, driven by the technical constraints of the time. The game had a 3-color quota, resulting in Jumpman's outfit choice, given the low pixelation. Miyamoto used the mustache to bring attention to Jumpman's face. In order to show his nose better, I gave him a mustache, and to make his running animation easier to understand, I gave him those overalls, he said in a 1986 review with the Japanese magazine Famamanga. That's an interesting name. Some pop culture experts theorize Miyamoto found inspiration in an issue of early 1980s magazine called Popeye, which featured a cover model dressed like Jumpman. It's meant to represent Western working man fashion, says Frank C., executive director of the Video Game History Foundation. Jumpman's outfit, it turns out, also suited his job, or perhaps it was in part inspired by it. Donkey Kong takes place in a construction site, where Jumpman runs across the screen fighting Donkey Kong. Whenever Jumpman dies, he rises again, up to 3 times, standard in gaming. Because Miyamoto was more of a designer than a programmer at the time, a team of programmers brought the game to life. Nintendo replaced the guts of the Radarscope game cabinets with the new game, repainted the exteriors, and hoped for the best. At first, Donkey Kong was a hard sell. It was definitely a thematic and graphic risk. Compared to other popular games of the day, arcade vendors and sales crews were as comfortable with shooting games as the kids dropping quarters into them were. Ryan writes in Super Mario. How do you sell a title about a carpenter fighting a monkey who throws barrels at him? With a name that makes no sense in English. It didn't fit into any recognizable category. Not a sports game, not a shooter, and definitely not even a driving game. But once it hit its first arcade, tongue twister, the game earned more than Radarscope ever had, ranking in and $200 million for Nintendo, Donkey Kong blew up, fundamentally changing Nintendo's course and that of US video games. All of a sudden, we see a bright, colorful game. Wait, hold on. We see a bright and colorful game with kawaii creatures, which changes what the arcade environment feels like, says Matthew Payne, PhD, Associate Professor of the Film, Television, and Theater at the University of Notre Dame, who studies the cultural history of video games. Thanks to this new squeaky clean image, Nintendo could work its way into homes as well. Jumpman becomes Mario. In 1983, Jumpman emerged from Donkey Kong's construction site into his own world, and with a new name. As legend has it, Mario was named after Nintendo's mustachioed landlord, Mario Segal. Mario Segal? Anyway, who came storming into the Tuck warehouse one day, angry that the rent was late. It said that Segal was nearly jumping up and down in frustration, an inspiration for the character. Mario Bros., released as an arcade game in 1983, is set in a sewer of pipes. Is set in a sewer of pipes instead of a carpenter. Mario is a plumber, accompanied on adventures by his taller brother Luigi, allowing for two-player games. This new two-player mode wasn't just a money grab, but a reflection of Miyamoto's beliefs that games should forge social connection. When they test games, even single-player games on a handheld device, Nintendo tests with groups to see if it's interesting enough for people to watch, says D. Winter. The introduction of a two-player game emphasizes that social aspect. Along with expanding gaming opportunities, the presence of Luigi strengthens Mario as a character. C describes Mario as a blank slate character, without a distinct personality. Compared to Mario, Luigi is typically more cautious. While both characters share capabilities, there are no games where Luigi can't do all the same things as Mario. Luigi tends to be more easily frightened, and might even hide behind Mario as the more reluctant protagonist. The taller green player highlights Mario's bravery and boldness, help creating a persona players can relate to or be inspired by. Mario's heroism takes place in a world by Miyamoto's childhood experiences, which have historically served as inspiration for Nintendo games. In Mario Bros., Miyamoto expressed his love for jumping, sliding, crawling, and collecting on childhood playgrounds. For adults, playing feels nostalgic. For kids, it just feels like being a kid. There's something so joyful in everything Mario shows up in, says De Winter. It's bright, fast, slippery, and loud. It's the absolute weightlessness of being that comes with unfettered in childhood. That and the playful, joy-filled nature of Mario's world turned out to be an asset. Mario Bros. Exploded in popularity just before the arcade crash of 1983 to 85. Marked by emptying arcades and dwindling sales, Nintendo earned a family-friendly reputation just as the company released its first at-home game console in Japan, the Famicom. The console was released in the States as, of course, as previously mentioned, the NES. In 1985, with the games Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt included. In 1988, Nintendo introduced Mario 2 to critical acclaim. Now, Mario wasn't only a household name. His games are a household staple, too. Super Mario Bros. Chef writes in Game Over, gave kids a sort of power they couldn't get anywhere else. It was safe for them to make mistakes while playing because there was always another chance. The things that ordinarily made kids popular at school were not important when they were playing. Also, they had found an arena which they could beat the pants off their parents, not to mention confound them with an incomprehensible vernacular. I'm in the second world of the Subcon, but I can't get past the mini-boss. Along with the courageously battling Koopas and Bowser to rescue Peach, Mario led Nintendo's successful pivot to the home game market. Suddenly, parents didn't have to be afraid of bringing shooting games into their homes. Now that they had a lovable character on an adventure to save a princess, Mario as a character allowed for product differentiation, but the squeaky clean image very clearly stated to skew games as a toy or leisure pursuit for children, says Payne. The Nintendo craze. Nintendo kept growing, up against giants like Sega and PlayStation. Rather than emulating what these brands did to gain popularity, Nintendo stayed on its own path, focusing on original characters and concepts. Mr. Y, back in the day, would tell us that we are not good at fighting, we are weak, so we don't go picking fights with other companies, Miyamoto told the NY Times in 2024. The approach worked. Nintendo, which boasts $3.4 billion in US sales by 1990, kept finding ways to fit into people's lives with new games and consoles, many of them featuring Mario. Released in 1989, the Game Boy became the biggest portable game on the market, but not necessarily because it was the... Ow. There's a picture of the Famicom. Whoops. There we go. Because it was the best. Nintendo, oh my goodness. Nintendo had prioritized new experiences with existing technology rather than creating fancy new technology in order to stay accessible to consumers. Sega had a large colored screen, but Nintendo made Game Boy smaller to keep the battery life longer and the price point lower, says De Winter. The SNES followed in 1991 and was the first home console with a memory card, allowing players to log their progress when they stopped playing the game. With it came Super Mario World, which took place in a new land with a new story and a new character, Mario and Yoshi's dinosaur companion Yoshi. Nintendo 64 arrived in 1996, and in Super Mario 64, consumers had a new way to explore Mario's world. In 3D, Game Boy Color... in 3D, the Game Boy Color came out in 1998, followed by 2001's GBA and GameCube. Followed by 2001's GBA, GameCube, and the Nintendo DS in 2004. The most recent console, the Switch, released in 2017, has since introduced plenty of Mario games, including a return to side-scrolling in Super Mario Wonder. Since Donkey Kong, Mario has had dozens of games named after him all across Nintendo's gaming systems. In addition to popular games like Mario Kart and Mario Party, he has been part of plenty of spin-offs, from teaching kids typing on PCs to refereeing sports on Wii games. Miyamoto also used him as a fill-in character when he was designing other games, such as The Legend of Zelda. It started out as Mario running around a dungeon, but because Miyamoto was thinking more about the gameplay itself rather than a story or character, C says, in that way, Mario is like an actor placed in roles by Nintendo, a right-hand man during the creative process. I guess in a way it's just like that. A 2020 article published in The Ringer calls Mario the video game character equivalent of Typo Blood. Like other big-name characters, he doesn't have a lot of discernible character traits other than being a good guy who wants to do what's right. The adaptability is what makes Mario universally appealing. We all want to be the hero, and being such an easy character to put ourselves into, Mario helps us live out that fantasy, says C. Since the Nintendo craze, Mario's mark on culture. Since the Nintendo craze of the 1980s and 90s, Mario's celebrity has only grown, along with Mario games. There are now Mario clothes, bedsheets, board games, and There are now Mario clothes, bedsheets, board games, backpacks, and both Mario-inspired movies and theme parks. According to Q Scores, an online database that scores public figures and fictional characters based on their popularity and likability, Mario's level of familiarity among Americans ages 6 and older has increased from 60% in 1996, when Q Scores began, to 72% as of 2020. Mario's O score, his measure of likability, sits at roughly 30%, meaning that 30% of people are familiar with Mario say he's one of their top characters. It could be said that Nintendo, in large part, has Mario to thank for its legacy. I do believe that the quality of something hinges on whether or not it's sought after several decades after its creation, Miyamoto said in a 2020 interview with the New Yorker. Walt Disney didn't create everything that Disney put out, but the idea that a company could make these long-lasting symbols, that's something I've admired. We're finally at a point where people who played with Nintendo's characters as children are playing with those same characters with their children. That longevity is special. That's also very true, as my parents actually grew up with Mario, and then lo and behold, I'm growing up with Mario Kart Wii. Anyways, moving on. All this fame hasn't changed Mario too much over the years, aside from some minor cosmetic changes necessitated by advancing technology. More colors, and a more detailed face for starters. But is there really anything to evolve in a character like Mario? To do so would be to alter what makes him so appealing, so enduring in the first place. He's just a timeless hero. His only opinion is that good is right, and princesses shouldn't be held against their will, says C. Experts have their own theories about why. Mario has stood the test of time, but in the end, Miyamoto would probably suggest that Mario's looks and personality, or lack thereof, don't matter as much as what we experience when we play with him. Like Nintendo did during the Radarscope challenge of the 1980s. Mario gets back up and tries again when he faces obstacles, which makes for a lesson in resilience and a pretty fun game. No one in history has lost more than Mario, but he always springs back up, says Ryan. So as long as you want to keep going, Mario will keep going with you. There we go. Mario's Maker. There's the description up there. Sunday, November 7th, 2010, was the day of the 40th NYC Marathon, and thousands of runners journeyed through the city as fast as their feet could take them. One very special visitor to the city didn't lace up a pair of New Balance kicks, but nevertheless had been running his own personal race for more than 2 decades. The year 2010 would mark the 25th anniversary of Mario 1, a game that ushered in a new wave of financial success and creative ferment for the home video game console business. Shigeru Miyamoto is that game's lead creator and has worked at Nintendo since 1977. Miyamoto, initially hired as a staff artist, now holds the title of Senior Managing Director and General Manager, Entertainment Analysis and Development Division. Miyamoto came to the US to celebrate the 25th anniversary and wowed fans with a surprise appearance at the Nintendo World Store in Manhattan's Rockefeller Center. Gamers young and old hooped and hollered when Miyamoto took the stage, and it's easy to understand why. In person, Miyamoto envices that same impish liveliness of his best work. Of his best work. I thought that said something else. My bad. And... one second. And, oh jeez, come on. And a conversation with him also makes plain on, And a conversation with him that also makes plain the thoughtfulness that sharpens the games he works on. I spoke with him 2 days before his Nintendo World appearance, and he held forth on the importance of simplicity in game design. I'm not going to read that question, but y'all can read it if you want to. I don't really think of things in terms of legacy, where I stand in the history of Nintendo, or anything like that. The important thing for us is to make sure that we're having fun in our job, so I really try to focus on again. Not only myself enjoying what I'm doing, but looking at my staff and making sure that they're having fun in their jobs as well. Especially when you're working on a series, there are times where you're doing some repetitions. Some work that maybe you've done before. You really want to make sure that the people working on it are approaching the project in a way they're not getting bored or frustrated. There we go. And that they're thinking new things and thinking new twists, and new appeals. That's something we look at as well. There's the next question. Well, the first reason is that Donkey Kong is just too darn big. And because he's so big, we actually created Donkey Kong Jr. to try and come up with the same sort of character, but in a smaller, more manageable size. And as we're looking at an 8-bit size, Mario became a much easier character to use. So that's the first reason. My original goal was that I really wanted to use Mario in a lot of different games. So, for example, in the original Punch-Out, you'll see Mario and Donkey Kong in the audience. That actually does make a lot of sense. Well, you'll see Mario... Did I miss... No, I didn't miss... No... Okay, I didn't miss anything. Alright, hold on. Alright, there we go. You'll see Mario and the Referee in Tennis, a 1984 NES game, and then it became taking Mario and Luigi both and putting them in different situations in various games, and that was the direction I decided to take. Exactly right. And it's sort of a common thing among popular culture in Japan that a creator will take the same character and have him appear in different manga. It's also sort of like maybe Hitchcock appearing in all of his movies. It's sort of cool to have that character appearing here and there, whether or not they have a large role or not. Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed, but Mario is sort of my doppelganger. Yeah, I think part of it has been very influential, in that my industrial design background has allowed me to be able to take these concepts that I have in my head and be able to put them down on paper. I have people on my teams do their own drawings and bring out the creation of their own ideas just to make sure that they're true to what they have in their heads. So in terms of thinking of design as building a structure into which we put everything else, that's the core for what we flow everything into. It hasn't changed all that much. That, I know. You're right, and when you take that and look at how people will respond to this, and you try to make that structure into something that people will enjoy playing and being a part of. That's a good question, actually. Well, as I said earlier, I start with the game system, so the rules and ideas that will go into the experience. So I think of a system, and maybe that is originally the concept for a Mario game, but we realize we're doing this is more suited to a Zelda game, and we'll try to do that. We'll switch characters out. But how I think of Mario is sort of as my go-to actor, So when I'm creating that new system, I start by plugging in Mario to see how he'll react or what we can do with him in this design. He's like the trusted guy you throw in to see how the system is working. The player is the one who is playing the game, and Mario is sort of their surrogate vehicle for enjoying that game. And because we know it's Mario, there's a sense of reassurance and familiarity. The player can think, even though I don't know what's going on, at least I'm Mario. You're talking about fitting Mario... Oh, wait, hold on. I don't have to read that. This is my video. I don't have to read that. Duh. I look at Mario... Oh, come on. There we go. I look at Mario as being equal to digital technology of the time. When we first started, we were looking at, say, 8-bit limited technology. There are always limitations to what you can do, but the fun in that, and that job for us, is to take that and see what could happen. Rather than complaining and wondering about what we can't do, and wondering, oh, if only we could do this, we create by looking at what we can do and using our energies to utilize that technology to the fullest, to maximize its potential. And of course, as technology grows and advances, that refreshes our ability to look at Mario in new ways, and to be able to do new things with him. And it's been really fun for me, a very natural process, and that. As the technology advances, so does Mario. Well, when I look back and play some of these games, there are a lot of places where, to be honest, I'm a little embarrassed. I look at Mario 3, and I'm like... this was it? This is what we thought was good enough? That being said, I do have new understandings of that work. The balance in that game is what it needed to be at the time. It really was, and even so, even with seeing all the limitations, I'm very happy with what we created, and I wouldn't change it. Whether or not this is actually a factor or not, we're not really sure. But this whole idea of mysterious something... Give me a second. Of mysterious foods that have mysterious properties comes from a lot of European folktales. Of course, you see foods like that in Alice in Wonderland. I'm not sure if the Japanese folk really knew what we were referencing, but that was sort of kind of like where it was coming from. At least that's what I think it was coming from. At least I think that's what it came from. I think the fantasy element... Oh, no, not that. Like you said, Zelda, of course, does have elements of fantasy folktales with goblins and whatnot. You can see those right away and how they're easily recognizable. With Mario, however, it's more surrealism. You'd see blocks floating in the middle of the air, doorways just appear out of nowhere. That kind of look draws on the work of Renee Margaret, I think that's how you pronounce that. Anyway, there's that sort of surrealistic element, there we go, of just giving people the freedom to draw, where the drawing is playing the game and not really being worried about facing it in reality. Players are artists who create their own reality within the game. So that's sort of Mario, creating new and surrealistic things rather than being based on anything else. When we were creating a game, we have to we have the world that's there, but really it's up to the user to fill in the spaces of things that aren't explained or laid out for them. Our job as the game creators or developers, the programmers, artists, and whatnot, is that we have to put ourselves in the user's shoes. We have to see what they're seeing and make it, and then make it and support what we think they might think. So if we're playing, we think, well, the players would probably want to do something like this, or maybe they're going to do something like this. The games need to be flexible enough to hit all the different users and support all the possible ideas of what they might and of what they think might be out there. Whereas with a book or movie, you're basically explaining to people, this is what's here, we're showing you what's here, and for us, that's sort of the opposite. That's also kind of true with video games in general, and why a lot of people like video games. Unlike a book, TV show, or movie, with a video, where you're usually reading or watching it, with a video game, you control the action. Anyway, rant aside, I haven't really played any of them, but I'm assuming they've done pretty well. I think we're just lucky. Super Mario, of course, is the sort of pioneer of that side-scrolling action game style, and we're just lucky to be in that position. It could have been somebody else, and even when we go into 3D with Super Mario 64 or whatnot, we revert back to that side-scrolling style so often. If people like it and want to use it, that's great, isn't it? We're always looking at and evaluating new technology. That being said, we're pretty much looking at the same technologies as every other company. But rather than the technology being the only driving force, we also think about how we can use it. What we can do with it is where we put our focus. That's something to be said about taking an idea and the value of that idea in conjunction with the technology. What's important is the ability to take that idea and make it more than itself. You can use a lot of different technologies to create something that doesn't really have a lot of value. How does it make you feel to know that these games have helped you produce something that... I keep forgetting I have to read that text. Well, yeah, there's a bit of responsibility. I am a player, too, so I'm always thinking about the player and how the player is enjoying their experience in the games. The goal is something that's accessible to all ages, of course, and all experience levels. How are we appealing to the consumer? Because we're gamers as well, and personally, I want to create something that makes me look cool while I'm playing it. When I'm playing as Link in a Legend of Zelda game, that's something where I can feel like I'm cool because I'm that guy. I'm obviously very appreciative. A lot of things come out of Japan are sort of segmented or taken as, this is from the Orient, this is East Asia. Right, exotic, where Mario is different. I don't think people need to recognize it as something out of Japan. He's become sort of this worldwide, easily accessible idea. People like it, that's great. To learn about kids or see kids dressed up as Mario on Halloween is something I'm very grateful for. Whoa, I'll still be here in 25 years. I mean, there are a lot of people at Nintendo who really get Mario. A lot of people I'm working with really understand who and what Mario is. Because Mario, as we've spoken about earlier, evolves with the technology, it is hard to say where he's going to be in 25 years. You may not be able to imagine what's possible in the future. That's right, I can't imagine it. I'm confident, though, people will still be playing as... That's right, I can imagine. I'm confident, though, people will be still playing as Mario, complete with this pretty sweet-looking picture. With this text. That's really sweet, honestly. Of course, his 3D transformation. Nintendo's big Mario game for Wii U, unveiled at the 2013 E3, turned out to not be strictly a Mario game at all. Super Mario 3D World reaches back into the NES's Halicon days, when we were smitten with a little something called Mario 2. Super Mario 3D World supports up to 4 players at once, handing you control of Mario, Luigi, Toad, and even the series' parental abductee, Princess Peach. The twist, everything is fully 3D, and you can play either cooperatively You can basically do co-op play or play competitively. There we go. As in Mario 2, Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad each have unique abilities. So, for instance, Peach can hover in the air when jumping, and Toad can sprint faster than his companions. Oh, and there's the cat suit, which, no, that's not just a yellow Tazuki suit, lets you scratch enemies, climb up walls, and even scurry up those precious end-level flagpoles. Developed by the same team behind Super Mario 3D Land for 3DS and the Wii Super Mario Galaxy series. Super Mario 3D World for Wii U arrives this December. Dear God, I cannot speak today. I spoke with the game's director, KH, known for making Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario Galaxy, and Super Mario 3D Land. And the producer, YK, too many to list. The producer, YK, with games that are too many to list. Here's what they had to say about some of the design choices. I'm not going to read that. This is what they had to say about the design choices. Whoops. And then here's that. Y'all can pause the video in this section if y'all want to read that for y'all selves. There we go. And here's the other side. When Mario went mobile, Nintendo video game designer Shigeru Miyamoto has spent his career developing some of the world's most iconic and cherished games, from the Super Mario franchise to Zelda and Donkey Kong. As video game consoles have changed over the years, so have the way in which people play them. The Wii's motion controls. The Wii U introduced a dual-screen experience for the first time, and the 3DS handheld system brought Mario and others to life in 3D. In 2016, Mario began to venture into widely lucrative yet untapped territory for the company. Mobile gaming. December 15th marked the launch of Super Mario Run for the iPhone and iPad, the first time the legendary plumber made his way to a mobile device. Time spoke with Mario creator Miyamoto about the challenges that come with bringing Mario to a new platform and more. I've been using smartphones myself for many years. So I had something, one second. So I had a good idea in mind for what would be a good way to bring Mario to smartphones. But I think for us, the biggest challenge was really in zeroing in on those core elements of Mario that would be best suited for play on smart devices. We had, during the Wii and 3D days, experimented with ideas where Mario ran automatically, and you would play by making Mario jump. And after doing some of those experiments, we found that we should probably bring Mario to iPhone, where you're playing with just one hand, just controlling the jumps. And once we zeroed in on that, it became relatively straightforward for us in terms of game development. And in the terms of actual development challenges, Mario would always focus his development on a single platform at a time. And of course, we're designing the hardware in the games. So when we designed our hardware for gaming, we're doing it in a way that offers very stable performance for gaming. But because smartphones are a multi-use device, we had some challenge in trying to get the performance out of the system that we wanted. But working through development and with the team, we were able to get it to where we were able to get the performance we wanted from iPhone to offer a stable gameplay experience. One of the challenges in game development is the very first time you make a new game, you generally design it so that as broad of an audience as possible can play. But then gradually, as you start to make more and more sequels, you start to make the game more complex and more challenging for the fans that have played the series, and you gradually get to a point where it becomes more difficult for beginners to be able to get into the game. This has been sort of a focus of ours during the DS and Wii days, where we've sort of tried to go back to the roots of the original gameplay and reset so that it has an easier entry point for people. And that was a very important thing for us with Super Mario Run as well. We didn't think about bringing an existing Mario gameplay to iPhone and just porting over something that you controlled with buttons before. We really focused on what is the best Mario experience for what you can get with iPhone. Of course, one of the advantages, or one of the things about interactive entertainment that people like, is the ability to control everything themselves. But even if you can have some automatic support structures built in, it still can be fun for people to interact with what's on the screen. And with Mario games in particular, it really is that sense of satisfaction that you get when Mario gets to the flagpole at the end. But I also think that one of the most entertaining elements of interactive entertainment is that you as the player are able to look at what you've done and what's coming ahead of you, and it's really fun to think about, oh, I should have done this a different way, or this is coming and now I have to adjust to that. By playing these levels and replaying Super Mario Run, I think people will find a lot of fun in just slight changes to the timing of their taps in order to get all the cover coins or maximize their score. I think with this being our first Super Mario game on iPhone, we've designed this both in what's the best experience, but also with a long road ahead of us in terms of what else we can do on iPhone. So perhaps you can look forward to some of that at some point in the future. But one thing we have done this time is that you'll be able to play not just as Mario, but after going through the game and unlocking some things and meeting some conditions, you'll be able to play as some other characters as well. It's less on having those characters to achieve or accomplish specific tasks, and more giving players a tool to unlock more of their gameplay creativity. Even if you're trying to collect the same group of covert coins, doing so with a different character will require you to do it in a different way. So that can be fun for the players to explore. Oh, up there, my bad. There are a number of other areas we'll be looking at, but in the near term, ones that will be coming out are a Fire Emblem game and Animal Crossing. Then, of course, each of these different games appeal to slightly different audiences. We see that a lot of parents often buy Mario games for their kids. From a pricing and payment structure, we felt that it was important that parents would just pay once, and then their kids can play to their heart's content. Isn't that the whole point of video games in the first place? Anyway, so what we'll do with each of these games is to look at who's the main audience playing, and then we'll devise a pricing structure for each game that's equitable for each audience. Just because the history of the franchise, we have a lot of assets to choose from. Actually, for us, one of the biggest challenges was deciding what doesn't go in because we were very quickly able to fill it up with content. Our approach was really to focus on what the right enemies for a game when Mario runs automatically. What are the right course styles? Those were the decisions that we were making, zeroing in on those types of elements. But what that means is that we have a lot of ingredients left over that we can continue to cook with, so to speak. A few things that we did, for example, is we took the bullet bill characters that usually come at you from the direction you're heading and we changed them and made them red. Now we have them coming at you from behind. The spiny characters with spikes on their shells also are a little bigger, so they're easier to see. There are a couple of reasons. There is a game in Japan I've been playing on a smartphone with my wife called Nico Atsume. It's sort of a cat collecting game. From that, I really got the sense of having this thing on your phone that you interact with on a regular basis, and then grow and build from there. It's a very compelling feature, and certainly Nintendo has had games that have done this in the past on their own platforms. The other reason behind it is typically with the Super Mario games, what you're really doing is sort of strategizing and working your way through individual levels, and we wanted to have a method for you to save the accomplishments that you get in each of those levels, and have a place where those accomplishments can kind of build up, and that's where the idea for the Kingdom mode came from. A big factor is that over the past few years, smartphones have gotten more and more powerful to the point where the performance that we're able to get out of the device is finally on par with what we expect from gameplay performance and response from our games. And then I think also there was a period, certainly for many years, our devices were the first sort of computing or interactive entertainment devices kids came in contact with, and that would be the first place where they experience games. But now, as more and more parents are giving are giving hand-me-down phones to their kids, kids are oftentimes coming into contact with games and smart devices at earlier and earlier ages. Isn't that the truth? We wanted to be able to reach those kids on those devices so they're able to experience our games and play those characters there. But when they want to play a more in-depth experience, they'll gravitate towards our devices to do that. And then I also think we've seen this with Pokemon Go. There are a lot of adults that, as they've gotten older, they've gravitated away from even purchasing gaming machines, but they're carrying a smartphone around with them. All of a sudden, with Pokemon Go, they're reconnecting with Pokemon and playing Pokemon again. Our hope is with Super Mario Run, we'll be able to connect with a lot of people that grew up playing Mario, and that they'll come back and want to play some of our games on our platforms as well. I am not reading all of this. Y'all can read this if you'd like. I am not reading that. There we go. There's a shot of that. Game time. That's what that says up there. With a picture from Mario Golf. The best games. Yeah. The Mario franchise is the quintessential gaming series. It is always evolving, full of surprises, and above all, fun. It's why Mario was flourished for so long when other video game mascots have fallen by the wayside. I remember playing Mario games for as long as I can remember, from the NES and Game Boy to the Wii, and to the Wii, Wii U, and Switch. My goal from an early age was to write about games for a living, and I managed to do just that. I've reviewed everything from first-person shooters to action-adventure titles and role-playing games. Traveled to E3, the defunct yearly games conference. Real sad that shut down, by the way, E3. And currently cover the business of games as the tech editor at Yahoo Finance. Throughout it all, Mario has been one of my favorite franchises. And based on how popular Mario continues to be, chances are it's one of your favorites too. But not every Mario game is like another, from the very first Mario Bros. Game to the latest and greatest Super Mario Wonder. What follows are the Mario game essentials, the games to play with friends, and the games you can skip. That's true for almost any gaming franchise. I am not reading this part either. These are talking about all the Mario games. These games have already been mentioned. We've all heard of these games. Moving on. Same thing applies here. There we go with that little quick section. How has Super Mario changed platformer games forever? What page am I on? I'm on 53. Alright. There we go. Something, the creative director. Okay. Nicholas D., the creative director for the hit 2044, Jesus. 2024, or no, 2024, there we go, I cannot say the year name apparently. PlayStation game Astrobot had a special relationship with Mario, and not just because it was his first console game as a child, and not because it was his first console game. As a child, Dee remembers he spent weeks diligently searching for secret invisible mushrooms hidden in one of the first levels, but he just couldn't find it. So he enlisted help from his mother, who finally picked up a controller after he kept insisting that she try the game. While Dee kept unknowingly running past the hidden mushroom, his mother accidentally stumbled upon it by jumping in the right place at the right time. Invisible becomes visible, which is the ultimate magic trick, Dee says when describing Super Mario influence on platformer games. A video game category in which the primary gameplay mechanic involves running and jumping on different surfaces, everything from classics like Super Mario, and Sonic the Hedgehog, to modern blockbusters like Astrobot are platformers. Secrets like the one Dee remembers from his... No, not that way. From... Watch, it's childhood, right? Please be that. Yes! I was right. From his childhood, as we look at a picture of Crash Bandicoot. Whoops. Also, here's a picture of Sonic. Sonic and Knuckles, actually. That's a really... That's a really washed out picture. Anyway. Oh, wrong way. Where's that? There we go. Childhood perfectly sums up why Ein Mario, which debuted on the NES in '85, has such an important place in video game history. It's not Mario's first appearance, nor was it the first platformer game. But Mario elevated both the Mario franchise and the genre as a whole by encouraging players to explore, not just rack up a high score. It's this approach, really, camera, combined with Mario's world building and accessible gameplay that sparked a whole wave of beloved platformers for decades. Mario really set the template for what an offline single-player adventure game is, said Frank C., founder and director of the Video Game History Foundation. It set the stage by saying a video game can essentially be an interactive movie. Again, very true. Something that has a storyline and a goal, and something that has a storyline, a goal, and can be completed. Adventure and story-driven games existed before Mario. These themes weren't prominent amongst platformer games specifically. To grasp the impact of Mario Bros., it's important to understand what the gaming landscape was like before 1985. Early titles like these games here were all about reaching an endpoint while avoiding enemies and hurdles. Whether they be aliens, barrels plummeting from above, or gapping pits in the ground beneath you, they were difficult but straightforward games. In Space Panic, for example, players climbed ladders and traversed platforms to ensnare aliens by digging holes, earning points for each creature they trap. In Donkey Kong, the player is tasked with ascending platforms to reach the princess. Points are accumulated by jumping over or destroying obstacles like barrels and fireballs along the way. Pitfall, which launched on the 1977 Atari 2600 home video game console, was a bit different. Gameplay entailed moving the character from the left side to the right side of the screen across a jungle-themed backdrop, a departure from the single-screen platform-centric gameplay found in games like Donkey Kong. But like other platformers of the time, gamers have one main job in Pitfall: avoid hazards and adversaries at all costs. Players jump over rolling kegs, using osculating vines to swing over giant pits in the ground, and hop on the heads of crocodiles to make their way across swamps. These games were influential in their own right, but they were designed to encourage players to consistently feed coins into arcade machines or remain glued to their consoles. Even the original 1983 Mario Bros., the first game to feature Mario's name in the title, was based on this type of arcade-minded game. Based on this type of arcade-minded gameplay. There we go. I'll eventually get that sentence out. Also, yes, there's Crash Bandicoot and Sonic. Anyway, moving on. And that approach was evident in the style and aesthetics of those games. Compared to Super Mario Bros., the background was black and very grim and institutional, says Jeff Ryan. Author of that book that was mentioned earlier. In reference to the visual differences between Super Mario and arcade games, it fit in with the arcade because arcades were these dark, foreboding, cool places, and Mario was so sunny. Early games lacked many of the traits found in platformers that have come to define the category over the last 3 years: a spunky and sometimes cute main characters, think Sonic the Hedgehog and Spyro the Dragon. Robust worlds filled with secret environments begging to be investigated, and story-driven plots. So what exactly did Super Mario Bros. Do differently? In the game, completing a level isn't always linear. You're rewarded for being curious and following the instinct to check every single question mark branded box, just in case there's a power-up or attempt to descend a pipe, because there's a chance it'll take you somewhere new and different. Players learn this from the very outset in World 1-2, which includes a secret warp zone area hidden at the end of the stage. Most of the time, breaking the brown bricks found throughout most Super Mario levels does nothing more than free up more space for Mario to jump, but every once in a while something special happens. Hitting one of these nondescript blocks in World 2-1, for example, causes a vine to grow, which Mario can climb to reach a secret area in the clouds filled with coins. This interactive approach to gameplay not only rewarded eagle-eyed and inquisitive players, but also made Super Mario Bros. Accessible in a way that many arcade games weren't. Instead of punishing players for losing, Mario taught gamers techniques they could apply to future levels to defeat the upcoming foes and discover hidden gems. For example, the first time you encounter a Koopa Troopa, you quickly learn that stomping them doesn't eliminate them. Instead, it just prompts them to hide in their shells, which you can't launch at, and which you can then launch at other enemies by jumping on them. That can make it easier to contend with and use them to your advantage next time. Mario is full of elements that make the world feel alive in ways other game worlds don't. From the bright and sunny backdrop Ryan mentioned earlier, to the animations and ways players are treated to extra lives that are jumping on a Koopa Troopa shell multiple times in a row. Touches like these left an impression on game designer Derek Yu, known for the popular indie platform game Spelunky, in which players fight their way through randomly generated underground levels using anything at their disposal to fend off monsters. It's a really important aspect of game design, because these simple interactions are connected directly to the player's button presses, and they're happening all the time, Yu said. Over email, even if we don't notice it, we definitely feel it. Spelunky is just one of the many platformer games that draw influence from the ideas pioneered in Mario. Mario kickstarted the era of the mascot platformer, or platformer games held by feisty, goofy, adorable characters designed to leave an impression rather than just serve as pixels to be plotted to an endpoint. Rather than just serve as pixels to be piloted to an endpoint. What followed throughout the 1990s wasn't an onslaught of Mario ripoffs, but a number of creative games led by endearing characters that, like Mario, pushed the boundaries of platformers in their own ways. Mario provided the formula for own developers to iterate upon and make their own. To alliterate on and make their own. Whoops. Providing that the character's success wasn't just a fluke, these are mechanics that technically existed prior to Mario. But that's really the game that demonstrated to the world that it's kind of like the template that people are looking for, C said. Sonic the Hedgehog may be the most famous video game mascot other than Mario, but when the sassy blue hedgehog arrived on the Sega Genesis in 1991, he made a name for himself by being everything that... Watch, it says Nintendo. Please be right. Please be the word Nintendo. Made a name for himself by being everything that... Not Nintendo, but Mario wasn't. As a character, he was expressively built to showcase Nintendo's weaknesses. Ryan wrote when describing Sonic in his book, Mario was jolly, Sonic was rude, Mario was happily unrushed, Sonic's express purpose was to rush. Of course, the approach to gameplay in Sonic is decidedly different from Mario games. You could argue Sonic is just as much a racing game as it is a platformer, but Sega's determination to compete with Nintendo undoubtedly contributed to Sonic's creation and success. As Ryan also notes in his book, Sega attempted to promote its consoles with other mascots that didn't just click before landing on Sonic. Such as Alex Kidd, who starred in the 1989 platformer Alex Kidd in Miracle World. He was totally forgotten and became he was totally forgotten because a much cooler person showed up afterward, Ryan said in reference to the iconic blue hedgehog. Not to be outdone, Sony's PlayStation division... Oh my goodness, camera, come on. Not to be outdone, Sony's PlayStation division needed a mascot platformer of its own. Enter Crash Bandicoot, the zany and often clueless orange Marsupial? Anyway, that along with Super Mario 64 helped usher platformers into the 3D era of the mid-1990s. Like Sonic games, Crash games put a different spin on platformer gameplay compared to Mario, quite literally. One of Crash's signature moves is a spin attack that is performed by pressing the square button. Instead of traversing along a flat 2D surface like Mario, Crash runs forward from the player's perspective. But Mario's influence is undeniable. Unlike Mario, Crash hops atop enemies to defeat them and jumps on boxes, some of which are punctured with a question mark. Wonder where that inspiration came from. Hint, hint. Anyway, to retrieve extra lives and Wampa fruit, the game's fictional fruit that looks like a cross between an apple and a peach, like the coins Mario collects, gathering 100 Wampa fruit earns Crash a 1-up. I wonder where they would have gotten that inspiration too, not just from Mario, but from Sonic. The level select area is even known as the Warp Room in certain Crash games. akin to Mario's Warp Zone. Sonic and Crash may be two of the most iconic mascot platformers to debut in Mario's wake, but they're far from being the only ones. Don't forget about Kirby, the lovable pink blob that made his debut on the Game Boy in 1992. Similar to the way Mario gains new abilities by finding power-ups in throughout the levels, Kirby learns new attacks by inhaling enemies, although that trick wasn't present in the original Kirby game. Spyro the Dragon, the 1998 PlayStation game in which the titular purple hero must rescue his fellow dragons from being transformed into statues, also takes some cues from Mario. Spyro, like Crash and Sonic, also pushed the platformer category forward in its own way. The game helped popularize open-world environments at a time where linear levels, like those found in Crash and Mario, were generally considered the norm. But Spyro games wholeheartedly embraced the idea of curiosity and adventure that Mario previously established. A core element of the gameplay invokes visiting every nook and cranny of a level to discover a concealed treasure chest, a hidden dragon in need of rescuing, or a sneaky thief with a stolen dragon egg in its clutches. Mario set the stage for what would become one of the most prominent styles of gaming, even for years to come. That's true even today, as evidenced by the success of Astrobot, which won the I'm just gonna ignore that word and say which won the Game of the Year title at the annual Game Awards. Astrobot embodies platforming gaming at its finest, with bubbly environments, innovative gameplay mechanics, and hidden rewards, and an unbelievably cute main character. You got that right. Like many of the great platformers that came before it, Astrobot inherits many of the staples that Mario established, but with its own twist. While the controls in Mario games tend to be very focused on momentum, making sure you gain enough speed and height to reach the top of the flagpole at the end of the stage, Astrobot's controls are more about precision. In Astro, we try to move away from inertia to actually give perfect pinpoint control, because we feel like this is what modern audiences need, D says. But Mario's reach extends beyond platformers, as C points out. Mario is fundamentally a game about exploring the world around you, a key tenet that guides many beloved modern games. It's hard, if not impossible, to find any adventure-style game today that doesn't have things off the path you can go and find to be rewarded for, he said. And I think all of that points back to the pipes in Mario. Good God, that was a handful. The Expanded Universe. Yeah, the Expanded Universe. Anyway, not that page. One of the most successful, video game franchises of all time, Super Mario is about more than the primary plumber. Nintendo created an extensive cast of recurring characters, villains, and sidekicks to fill out the Mushroom Kingdom. Some, like Luigi, have their own games and franchises spun off of the original Mario universe. Plus, Nintendo leverages closely linked partner enterprises in the form of spin-off series and crossover games. The long-running multiplayer fighter series Super Smash Bros. Features well-known characters from various Nintendo franchises, duking it out with unique powers. Here's a non-exhaustive breakdown of the main players through Mario's world, and a few friends they made along the way. Possibly referring to this picture right here. Oh, wait, no, never mind. Again, I'm not reading this either. We all know what Super Smash Bros. Is, and we all know these characters. I just want to point something out. Of course, it wouldn't be Super Smash Bros. Without mentioning the other characters, obviously. Hence the Friends of the Franchise section. Ah, of course. Of course, the Super Mario movie. Not a damsel anymore. Got that right. I am so glad, by the way, that Nintendo actually made Peach kind of the girl boss in the movie. Such a creative decision. I really wish Peach's girl boss personality would come out in the games. Or at least I hope so, anyway. Anyway, having once held the title of most kidnapped, the franchise mainstay is finally fighting back. You got that right. Anyway, whoops, I am not a competitive carder. A typical game night with my friends comes with a few guarantees. We'll play some Jackbox games around a canton or another board game. And we'll certainly be playing Mario Kart, specifically Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And I'm not very good at it. While my friends race through Thwompa Ruins, I'm spinning out in front of one of the titular thwomps. As they weave through shortcuts in Cheep Cheep Beach, I'm in the water for the 4th or 5th time. I can't even attempt Rainbow Road without smart steering. According to data scientist Antoine M., I might be playing the wrong character. In April 2024, she released extensive research on which Mario Kart 8 builds would increase a player's chances for victory. While I often reach for speed demons, Bowser and Wario, it turns out that Princess Peach should have been my main all along. M's research examined that amount of possible builds and employed by the Pareto Frontier, a set of solutions devised by the 19th century mathematician VP to identify the best trade-off between, I have no idea where this is going, between all objective functions. Oh, interesting comparison there. In the case of Mario Kart 8, all the functions include acceleration and speed, while the objective is to win, according to M's research. The best build includes Peach behind the wheel. Nintendo's leading lady retains an array of accountants. I'm not sure I pronounced that. She golfs, go-karts, plays tennis, and has even competed in the Olympic Games. She's one of video game's oldest female characters and manages to do it all in her tulip-shaped gown. Yet for the first 30 years of Nintendo's games and media, Peach was woefully underutilized. Despite her athletic proficiencies, Peach's role in the vast majority of Mario games lies solely in her ability to get kidnapped. A lot. But recent entries such as Princess Peach's Showtime and the Mario movie highlight the strength and power of the blonde princess. Since her introduction, Princess Peach has been kidnapped more than a dozen times, namely by Bowser, the dragon-like villain deemed King Koopa. That's very interesting how he's called that in Japan. Anyway, Peach's perpetual plight goes back to her debut on, lo and behold, Mario 1 on the NES, in which she was introduced as Princess Toadstool, the ruler of the Mushroom Kingdom. Toadstool appears in Mario as less of a person and more of an ambiguous dream. As players complete levels, they are told by rescue toads that are princesses in another castle. When you finish the game and rescue her, the princess thanks you and invites you to play that game and invites you to play again. But that game's sequel, Mario 2, brought Peach into the main fold. The 1998 game was the first time the princess was a playable, oh my goodness, lighting, come on, was a playable character. She was given a unique superpower. Her pink billowing skirt enables her to hover in the air, and in retrospectives, Peach told the franchise's second entry was unique and powerful. My favorite character by far was Princess Peach. I know Toad is the fastest, making for an ideal speedrunning character, and Luigi has the best jump, but Peach could briefly hover in the air, and using that flying technique was my favorite part of the game, wrote Peter T. for Kotaku in 2019. More than 30 years since the game's release, Princess Peach's flying ability brought a finesse to platforming, making obstacles more forgiving. Miss one of those trouters jumping from a bottomless waterfall? Have Peach glide until the next trouter jumps out of the water. Her first game. Nearly 20 years, Peach finally earned her own game, the 2005 Nintendo DS platformer Super Princess Peach, and was the first, and until 2024, only game with Peach as the star. In typical Mario games, if I can flip oh, hold on, there we go. Okay, in typical Mario games, the plumber has his sidekick and brother, Luigi. In Super Princess Peach, the titular monarch has one too, a boy who transforms into a magical parasol named Perry. While Super Princess plays like most Mario platform games, there is one feature that fuels Peach's powers and utilizes the DS's new touchscreen capabilities, according to Polygon. Super Princess was originally planned for the for the GBA, but it was eventually brought forward to the then new Nintendo DS. The transition was evident in the implementation of the DS touchscreen. As Peach, players can call upon 4 emotions, or vibes as the game describes them: joy, gloom, rage, and calm. Vibes are accessible by tapping the 4 corners of the DS touchscreen and letting Peach set objects on fire by tapping into her anger and soaking flames with tears for dramatic bawling. Critic AS, in our 2013 video Damsel in Distress Part 3, part of her Tropes vs. Women in Video Game series, argued that Super Princess Peach's mood swing-based powers made the game a train wreck of gender stereotypes. Peach's powers are her out-of-control, frantic female emotions, Sharkinson said. We can throw a temper tantrum and rage her enemies to death, or bawl our eyes out and wash the bad guys away with tears. Essentially, Nintendo had turned a PMS joke into their core gameplay mechanic. Sarkinson also noted that Super Princess Peach inverted the typical gender roles of the Super Mario games. Peach still managed to take a narrative backseat to her male co-star, her sentient parasol. Peach is not even featured in any of the game's narrative cutscenes. Instead, they all focus on the backstory of her parasol, who turns out is really a cursed boy named Perry, Sharkinson said. The dude in distress role reversal premise here feels like it's not just intended as a lighthearted joke or niche market novelty. Peach's debut game was an opportunity for the Nintendo audience to explore the character as an individual, but since its early making, the publisher made clear that this is a girl game with added extra touches to promotional copies. When Super Princess Peach arrived in the IGN offices, the box it came in literally permeated the air with an overwhelmingly flowery peach scent. Call it a clue to where Nintendo is targeting its new platformer, wrote IGN Craig Harris at the time, though the final release game won't be covered in perfume. It should be clear to you just by the title what you're getting into: a Mario-style game that's more likely than not aimed at a more feminine and less hardcore girl audience. Super Princess Peach remains one of the lowest-selling Mario titles. In the years that follows, Princess Peach has achieved playable character status more often, usually appearing in spin-offs like the Mario Kart series of racing games, the Super Smash Bros. Series of cross-franchise fighting games, and various Mario-branded sports games. Peach's perpetual victim status draws on a long and storied history regarding the damsel in distress trope. The Ramayana, an ancient Indian epic, is a cornerstone of Hinduism that dates more back than 2,000 years. In the tale, Rama must go on a fantastical journey with his brother Lakshmana to rescue his wife Sita from a terrifying monster. Ravana. Super Mario Odyssey, a 2070 game, has a similar plot, except the Lakshmana character isn't Mario's brother Luigi, but instead a sentient cap named Cappy. Well, that's interesting. Cool. Anyway, a blockbuster behemoth. I'm taking you to see the princess. She can help you. She can do anything. That was one of the first mentions of Princess Peach in the 2023 blockbuster. The Mario movie. Toad greets Mario, who just warped into the Mushroom Kingdom and hears all about the plumber's plight. When faced with Mario's life or death quest to save his brother, the only answer is to bring him to meet the compassionate, fierce, and benevolent Princess Peach. Video game Peach had stayed the damsel in distress for a while. Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto told Variety in 2023, "We tried to push our desires for a more in control princess in the movie, and I think it was one of our first conversations to make her the strong, powerful princess she was always meant to be. In the film, Peach travels to the kingdom of Donkey Kong to champion a wartime collusion, however you pronounce that word, against the evil Koopa Kingdom. Not only is the princess a savvy negotiator, but she knows how to fight. And this time, when Bowser and his minions think they got the upper hand, Peach turns the tables and breaks free on her own. Peach is a more empowered princess imagined for the current age. She's a respected ruler willing to engage in diplomacy as much as battle in order to protect her subjects and her Mushroom Kingdom, wrote Tracy Brown for the LA Times in 2023. She's not at all intimidated by Bowser, a fire-breathing bully with a big army. And not only has she already mastered all the skills Mario needs to learn in order to survive his confrontation with their reptilian foe, she can do everything while wearing heels. This Peach is who you want saving you. During Women's History Month in 2024, Nintendo released a second Peach-fronted game in their expansive library. Princess Peach Showtime begins with Peach and her toads at the Sparkle Theater, where the Sour Bunch, a group of anthropomorphic grapes, attempt to ruin the performance. Peach is separated from her toad posse and partners up with the theater's guardian, Stella, a magical talking ribbon. Throughout the game, players explore the game's side-scroller levels as Peach and gather collectibles, unlock boss battles, and progress through the various levels. An invisible audience applauds whenever Peach reaches a checkpoint or does a power pose. Each level is a different play being performed in the theater, with Peach as the star. As a fan of magical girl anime, Sailor Moon, I enjoyed how instead of just giving Peach a weapon like the Poltergust 3000 in Luigi's Mansion, or a power-up like the cat suit in Bowser's Fury, Peach activates the unique abilities, or Sparkula, of each play's main actor through a Sailor Moon-esque transformation. Ha! I knew there was a Sailor Moon reference somewhere. Transferring her outfit in a flashy cutscene, noted NRP's Rakisha Chase Jackson in her review of the game. These Sparkula metaphors are visually done wondrous, but not all are created equal. I hope Nintendo revisits Kung Fu Peach, Ninja Peach, and Dashing Thief Peach in future games. But I dreaded having to play as Figure Skater Peach or Mermaid Peach. As cool as it was to control sea creatures through song or spin through graceful ice choreography, it was way more satisfying to take out guards as a stealthy ninja or navigate puzzling levels as a master spy with a grappling hook. Despite the sales, Princess Peach Showtime sold a total of 1.22 million units in the first 10 days of its release, according to financial data Nintendo released in May of 2024. After nearly 4 years of being sidelined as the franchise's main damsel, Peach is finally coming into her own as a primary protagonist, with rumors of a Peach-focused feature film and a potential for new games on the horizon. Her story is just getting started. In the meantime, I'll take a cue from data scientist Antoine M. and start working on Mario Kart builds that involve Peach. Maybe Rainbow Road isn't so daunting after all. Ha ha ha. A super brand. With that on its front. Why Super Mario works on film. Nothing is harder to predict than the movie business. Still, what occurred in the first weekend in April of 2023 seemed to catch everyone in Hollywood napping. During that extended 5-day holiday fame, theater owners braced themselves for the annual onslaught of ticket buyers who had made a habit of flocking to the movies over Easter. For the industry, this period of each spring had become one of the most lucrative patches of real estate of the calendar year. It was when Universal rolled out its 2015 tentpole Furious 7. The latest chapter in its most precious franchise. It's also when Warner Brothers released its 2016 superhero mashup, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, perhaps the most anticipated DC picture of the decade. By the time Easter weekend rolled around in early 2023, North America's multiplexes were already doing a brink business with the latest big-budget offerings from Keanu Reeves. Basically from these actors and movies down here, basically. Anyways, moving on. Needless to say, these are some of Tinseltown's biggest and most bankable heavyweights. And yet, the The film would end up hijacking the holiday. The entire spring, actually, was an animated kids movie about two Italian-American plumbers with bushy mustaches and questionable plumbing skills who had first appeared on the pop culture radar in a Nintendo video game back in the 1980s. During its first week in theaters, Universal's Mario movie would pull in more than 2,400 million. And while the reviews weren't over the moon, audiences, fell in love again with the Outer Borough pipe jockeys, Mario and Luigi, in its blockbuster initial run. The film would rack up that amount of money domestically and even more impressive that amount of money abroad, bringing its total worldwide haul to a staggering 1.36 billion. That's a billion with a B. When the year finally came to a close, the boys from Brooklyn used their power-ups to claim the number 2 spot on the list of the biggest box office hits that year, sandwiched between Barbie and Oppenheimer. I've actually seen Barbie, by the way. It's on Netflix. I do not know if Oppenheimer is on Netflix, though. Anyways, the film's hand-over fist success was especially astonishing because not just the nation's critics that had given it a chilly reception, but also because the last time the brothers appeared on the big screen, it did not go initially as well. As the older gamers out there will recall, some traumatically, no doubt, 1993's live-action Mario movie, starring Bob Hoskins as Mario and John L. as Luigi, was one of the most reviled box office duds of the 90s. The critics hated it, of course, but so did most of the folks with Nintendo consoles at home who were primed, pumped, and predisposed to love it. Instead, they got what the Chicago Sun-Times Robert Elbert would call a complete waste of time and money. Today, the original Mario movie from the 90s is regarded as the first big screen adaptation of a video game, a trial balloon that came off likely as a lead weight. And after it quietly slinked its way out of theaters, many predicted that the nascent trend of video game movies was over before it even had a chance to begun. But in truth, the wave of joystick IP was just getting started. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Resident Evil, they just kept coming like an endless string of barrels being hurled by a gorilla. Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, Max Payne, Prince of Persia, The Sand of Times, Assassin's Creed. The list went on and on. Some of these films would do well at the box office, but few managed to truly spark imaginations of rabid gamers, especially as their inevitable sequels began to trickle out. Hollywood just couldn't seem to give up on the dream of video game adaptation. Hollywood just couldn't seem to give up on the dream of video game adaptations. Then, in the spring of 2023, the studio's persistence finally paid off. So why did the Mario movies succeed where so many other video game movies had crashed and burned? Well, the headline of Variety's new review of the film hints that one of the main reasons, sheer animated fun, and the rare video game movie that gives you a prankish video game buzz. Yes, the Mario movie was fun, obviously, there's more to its triumph than that. After all, when a movie makes more than $1 billion, it tends to be because a number of things went right at the right time, maybe? Oh, same time. Close enough. A box office perfect storm. We dug in and came up with 8 reasons why Mario and Luigi finally won over old fans and created generations of new ones along the way. Really, camera. I am not reading all of this. I'm just going to say the bullet points. Make it for fans, not for critics. Make it for kids, but don't forget about the parents. Add a heavy dose of star power. And a dose of girls' power. A hands-on Nintendo. Memes are your friend. Yes, they are, apparently. And finally, leave the audience wanting more. That's true of any movie, though. Leaving on to want for more. I am not reading about the 1993 live-action... I'm not reading about the 1993 Mario movie. No, I'm not doing that. We all know it. We all heard of this movie. We all know how crappy it is. If y'all want to pause the video and read this, you can. All right. Moving on. Oh, of course, the last thing to be included in this, level up in real life. During the groundbreaking discovery for a new Nintendo theme park at Universal Studios Japan in June 2017, 3 men took to the stage to speak about the plans. But this was hardly a typical groundbreaking ceremony, considering that these businessmen, heavy hitters, were decked out in matching Mario hats and oversized gloves, which made holding their microphones a bit difficult, and were introduced by giant dancing Mario during the confetti-filled finale. JLB, CEO of Universal Studios Japan, Shigeru Miyamoto, Nintendo game director, and Mark Woodbury, vice chairman of Universal Parks and Resorts, even struck Mario's signature jumping pose, officially kicking off construction on a new park that would be as every bit as fun and extravagant as its groundbreaking ceremony. After several delays during the pandemic, Super Nintendo World officially opened its doors in 2021. As the first visitors enter the park, through a green warp pipe, of course, they are met with a visually arresting universe filled with all things Mario. The game world feels alive. Goombas would walk back and forth, piranha plants would do something. Let me get my... There we go. Piranha plants bob and snap at park visitors, coins float in the air and spin, and platforms move from side to side. One reviewer on a blog for Disney and Universal theme park wrote one reviewer on a blog for Disney and Universal theme park. Super Nintendo World feels like being transported from Universal Studios into a 3D Mario Land, wrote another blogger. Every inch of the 76,000 square foot space is packed with elements from the Mario franchise, from an interactive Mario Kart ride to mini games to blocks that allow visitors to collect virtual coins. Super Nintendo World, which cost upward of $575 million to create, takes theme parks to the next level, blurring the lines between video game and real-life attraction. This is, in part, thanks to the fact that Nintendo game designer Miyamoto was heavily involved in creating the world. We, Nintendo and Universal, had the shared idea of creating something new and impressive, and the idea of wanting to create something that's truly interactive, he told The Verge. In that sense, our involvement wasn't just a matter of reviewing assets or reviewing designs, but really trying to get down to the nitty-gritty of how people are going to experience this and what their experiences are going to be. In February 2023, a second park was opened at Universal Hollywood in California. While the attractions and vibe are similar in the two parks, they were designed in conjunction after a partnership between Nintendo and Universal was announced in 2015. The US version is significantly smaller. However, the most beloved attraction appears at both parks. Mario Kart's Koopa Challenge, the Mario Kart ride, called Mario Kart Koopa's Challenge in Japan and Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge in the US, which again makes sense. The name change for both countries, is designed to allow visitors to literally play one of the franchise's most beloved games. It utilizes AR technology, a type of technology that incorporates CG information into the real world. So riders are literally moving on a track while seeing virtual components like characters and other elements pulled straight from the Mario Kart game. You want to be able to go through some of the items in Mario Kart. You want to collect things. You want to see the characters fly. Certain things you cannot do with stereo, 3D, or any kind of other projection. It had to be AR, said Thuri Cope, Universal's creative SPV at the time of the ride's launch. Visitors wear an AR headset, which looks like a Mario hat. The steer and launch shells at opposites using a real steering wheel attached to the cart. There's just a lot going on with the Mario Kart ride. It doesn't move very fast, but it feels like it does. Because the track is often completely simulated, the Rainbow Road section, for example, is incredibly visually intense, wrote a reporter from The Verge who reviewed the Japanese version of the park. It's overwhelming, but a whole lot of fun. And like the rest of the park, seems to be more rewarding if you try it multiple times. I know I get a better score the next time around. According to Universal's VP of Digital Innovation, Tom G., the company has planned for the improvement in AR technology, which he says will likely come about before the physical components of the ride wear out. To Anyway, we know that's going to advance and come into your home, so we have plans to integrate the tech to support the creative vision that we may change. Aside from the rides, the park is packed with interactive elements. To unlock this section of the park, visitors need to purchase a power-up band for $40 USD. The bracelet syncs to a smartphone app and allows visitors to collect digital coins, punch question blocks, and play key challenges, which are interactive mini-games that allow players to collect virtual keys. If visitors beat all the games, like Goomba Crazy Crank, where players crank a wheel to push a Goomba away, or Thwomp Panel Panic, where players have to tap panels before a Thwomp mixes them up, they can compete in a final challenge against Bowser Jr. Think of Super Nintendo World as a life-size living video game where you become one of the characters. You're not just playing the game, you're living the game. You're living the adventure, Coop told Forbes in 2020. The Nintendo World doesn't even stop during mealtime. The parks offer a Mario-themed menu at the Toadstools Cafe, Capino's Cafe in Japan, and Kinopino's Cafe in Japan, run by Chef Toad. The restaurant is located inside a red mushroom, and the screens inside show Toad and friends working away in the kitchen. Everything on the menu either has mushrooms, looks like a mushroom, has a flavor profile of a mushroom, or is a nod to the Mushroom Kingdom, said Universal Studios Hollywood executive chef Julia Thrash, the real chef behind the menu at the California park. Sorry, Chef Toad. Said Universal Studios executive chef Julia Thrash, the real chef behind the menu at the California park. Sorry, Chef Toad. The menus at the different parks are slightly different, but they all creatively incorporate the Nintendo IP into plates like the Piranha Plant Capri Salad, the Question Block Tiramisu, which I've heard is actually really good, by the way, the Super Mushroom Pizza Bowl, or the Teriyaki Chicken and Superstar Rice. That name doesn't really sound very good, in my opinion. That's just me. Anyway, in 2024, an additional dining option, the Power Up Cafe, opened at Universal Hollywood. Located outside of Super Nintendo World in the park's upper lot, the restaurant is completely inspired by power-ups. We wanted the guests to be able to come in through the park and power up their day, Thrash told Eater Los Angeles. She explained that the menu and decor are inspired by Superstar, Super Mushroom, and the menu and decor are inspired by Superstar, Super Mushroom, 1-Up Mushroom, and the Fire Flower, with offerings like the Super Mushroom Calzone, the Fire Flower Pretzel, and the Superstar Popcorn Cup, topped with edible glitter. Oh my god, these things sound so amazing! Anyway, because the park at Universal Studios Japan is significantly bigger than the one in California, it boasts some extra features, including Yoshi's Adventure, a slow-paced ride that ambles around a track throughout the park, and the newly opened Donkey Kong Country, a section of the park based on Nintendo series with the adventures of the tie-wearing gorilla. The main attraction, in the new area is the Minecart Madness roller coaster, which is designed to look like the cars are jumping over broken tracks. Universal patented the design for the ride. There we go, which it calls a boom coaster. Back in 2016, and is also expected to make an appearance in Universal Orlando's Super Nintendo World, opening in 2025. During the making of this, and I believe Orlando's Nintendo World is currently open as of the making of this video. So there you go. So yeah, as of the making of this video, Orlando's Nintendo World is currently open. Anyway, as soon as the first park in Japan opened in 2021, Super Nintendo was a smash hit. People traveled from all over the world to experience the theme park that makes you feel like you're in a video game. The technology was not ready for this, said Coop at the Mario Kart ride, but one of the incredible things that Universal Parks and Resorts does, we look forward and we see a technology that could allow us to deliver an experience, and then we grab it and develop it further and make it happen. There's a bit of calculated risk. But we think that's the only way for us to really stay on the cutting edge of the ultimate experience. With the new iteration opening in Orlando in 2025 and another slated for Universal Studios Singapore in 2026, there's no telling what kind of attractions are in store for Super Nintendo World. Yeah, I accidentally kind of broke that. The bottom of the book. Anyway, here is some merch. I am not reading all of this. Y'all can look at this for yourself. The fact there exists a truff hot sauce is kind of funny, though. That's also really cool. Super Mario sneakers. Anyway. So, hold on one second. Mario's Magic. The mustachioed mainstay has been chasing power-ups and stomping Goombas for 4 decades. With the release of with the release of Mario, Nintendo began an expansive franchise and now includes theme parks and feature films. And with that out of the way, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Talk to y'all later.